I know they have so much to offer us tonight. Our first speaker is April Weitkamp,
White,
and so
White
God,
kid.
I do that every time.
It's a weird last name. It's okay.
April Weitkamp. Thank you. She is a life skills teacher in the Everett School District, and she has over 20 years of experience in self contained classrooms and extensive experience in implementing communication systems for students with complex needs. And then integrating those systems is part of her literacy program. And so she just wants you to know that she values literacy as a life skill for everybody, and she works tirelessly with her team to ensure all students have access to literacy in its many forms. Kelly Marks is our second co speaker. She is a speech language pathologist. She has a passion for early learning, inclusion, and preschool through third systems work. She started her career in public schools in Everett and then ventured into private practice for 9 years. And then she returned back to Everett Public Schools as a program facilitator, transitioning birth to three families into Part B educational system and then supporting the developmental preschool programs. So that adventure took her into the world of early learning. She became a facilitator of Everett's early learning program, and she focuses on so many things: kindergarten readiness, um, community pre K partner collaboration, Washington Kids training, quality early learning in literacy and math, and then building foundations that last, writing framework, preschool grade 3, and inclusion. So both speakers just have a wealth of literacy information to share with us tonight. And so I will stop there and take it away.
Great, I get to start. Um, Thank you for being here, everyone. It's such a lovely day, and a great evening. I really appreciate you spending time with us. Um, April and I are really excited to share our journey so far. This is a journey so far as we've moved through a book study of the book entitled Comprehensive Literacy for All. And we're going to talk a lot about that and how we have intertwined AAC into that process in that book. And so before we go any farther, however, April will share a little bit about our demographics and our kids that we work with.
Yeah, I should probably note that I was in another school for quite a long time, and this is my first year in the building I'm in. Uh, New adventures. I needed something different. And Kelly decided to join me, which was fantastic. Okay, so the self-contained classrooms in Everett have been many grades. We are finally moving back towards smaller grade bands within the classrooms. We have a goal of 10 students. I call it a goal because it's soft and sometimes we can have more. Set is 2 classroom paraeducators. We have the bonus of having several one-on-ones. They are actually almost all team members that I have worked with previously, and it's been a lovely journey to try some new things and have them launch the development of our students' learning as well. We have grades 2 through 5. Numbers don't always match with our intent, so we are a 2nd through 5th grade classroom. We have 5 students who have student-specific voice output communication aids. So they were either trialed or got them when they came to us. Several have ones that I am not as familiar with, so I'm spending a lot of time learning those this year as well. We were talking our preferences before we started tonight. We also have one student who prefers ASL as his primary form of communication. Bonus is one of our paraeducators is actually fluent in ASL and was an interpreter. So we have that extra added benefit. We have also started him using a pod. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's Pragmatic Organized Dynamic Display. They are a low-tech communication system that were started in New Zealand. And I have done work using pod for, I can't recall the number of years, probably longer than I want to admit out loud. Kelly is our speech therapist, and she's one of those lovely folks that likes to push in, which means that when she's coming into the classroom, she's coming in and she's doing her therapies, and on the work, we get to work collaboratively in the classroom. Part of the reason I love that is that's the place we communicate all the time, and we feel like if we are doing those things together, we get the most bang for our buck in terms of what we're able to do. So we also have this year a student who has CVI. and he is working with switches. He has had a yes switch, and we had a lot of background work we had to do in working with him, and we're working on a no. So we are finding new things that we get to practice doing this year with the kids, and it's part of our journey. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. Quickly for questions, if you have them, please go ahead and either put them in the chat, or if you think it fits, let us know. Otherwise, we will have some time for those at the end. All right.
So 2 years ago, in the spring, our assistive technology groups from Everett organized a book study, and a group of us decided we would jump in and we would read Comprehensive Literacy for All by Karen Erickson and David Haver. And so we read the book and we did some collaborative planning. And we were really lucky because Barb Lark was part of that with us as well. And so some of the work that you see tonight is part of the work that started 2 years ago. For me, that was a great book study, and I kind of put it on the shelf. And then, as April said, we had a new journey this year, and April landed at a school, and I went, wait a minute, you're going to that school? And it just happened to have an opening. And so I said, I think it's time for me to move too. So I requested for a transfer, and we have worked and collaborated together for many years, but this is the first year that we've truly worked together. And it is messy and fun and irritating and all of that combined.
Joy, yes, all of the things every day.
And we're having a great time. And so because April is a go-getter and a networker, she learned about this 2-day conference, and she said, we're going to go to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to go to it. So we signed up for the conference in Bellingham, and the focus was on this book. And so this journey that we're talking about is how we have used this book to really focus our work on reading and writing, implementing it with the students' systems that they have, high, low tech, all of the above within her classroom.
And I will say, if you haven't read the book, I do highly recommend it. We need to read it again and again and again. It is a very deep and complex book. It is very research-based best practice. And it's kind of like the rest of the things that you do. You read it once, and then you got to read it again. And I think every single time I look at a kid, I think I've got more I have to learn about that. So just a bit on that. It's my shameless plug for We Love It. Okay, so I do have a little bit of a thank you here. We're kind of going through our journey. So what we knew that all kids can learn literacy skills. Learning to read is a life skill. If I could get paid just to read all the time in some life, I would love to do that. And this book really is the foundation for best practices in literacy. But it's a lot. And I remember reading it, and like Kelly said, I kind of put it on the shelf because coming back from everything with COVID, we had a lot we were working on and a lot we were thinking about, and bandwidth was part of it. But also there's so much content in it, it was very, very difficult to know where to start. And my many thanks here is to Barb Lark and Sarah Kinsella. Amy Connolly works up in Bellingham, and then Sarah Ayers and the additional instructors from the SETC, Special Ed Tech Center at Central. We got some advanced viewing of some of the materials that they were going to have at the conference. And one of the things that we saw kind of, triggered the light for me. And I was able to kind of wrap my brain around how I wanted to start this journey. And we decided, especially after the conference and looking at the wonderful documents that they've shared, that was a great place to start. Now, because we keep talking about Barb, I'm going to ask her to just wave, and if everybody can see her, that would be great. Barb has done some really tremendous work. She was an SLP that worked with both Kelly and I in the past. And I'm going to do a shameless plug for this really, really phenomenal resource that she has been working on at SETC. It's hyperlinked here, and I'm going to click on it really quick. This will take you to their website. Barb has been doing a ton of work. Can everybody see this? Because I know sometimes when you're sharing, it doesn't switch. Okay. She has been doing a tremendous amount of work taking the content from Comprehensive Literacy for All and helping develop lesson plans for people to be able to start using it. They're kind of all encompassing. So if you need a book, you can find it on her list. If not, she'll even let you email her and help design some of the resources for it. It's kind of amazing. It makes me really happy. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Oh, Amy's on here too. So we loved it. It's been very, very helpful for us, and we are going to continue to use it. But we're talking about how we've also used our own school district provided curriculum. So my little shameless plug there for that one. Also, as you start taking on something like this, own your bandwidth. I know that both Kelly and I, in our TPEP goals for this year, and I'm going off topic a little bit here, decided this was our one goal and our one thing we were going to evaluate ourselves on. And I've said this in most of the different projects I've taken on over the years. If you're going to pick one thing and do it really well. This is the one that we picked this year, and we're doing it. And then I'm going to probably continue to keep doing it for the next few years, just because I'm finding that rewarding. And also it allows me to really deep dive into the content that I want to focus on. All right, Kelly, your turn.
Oh, yes. Okay. So at the conference, we were given an article called Comprehensive Literacy Instructions for All, the big 4 questions answered. And we were asked to read this ahead of time, which was helpful. And what it did is it confirmed that reading and writing foundation was foundational for all. And that we know that it makes other skills available for our students and makes it easier for them. It gives them power to have a voice, and it gives them power to seek support where they might not have been able to have that. So we reviewed this great article, and again, I think as just a refresher to go back over and over and read it again, because there are so many pieces that are part of the article. But April, if you'll click on it, we can take a look at those. You can't?
I can.
Yeah, okay. Those questions, and we'll just take a look at the questions that are highlighted within the text. How do I provide comprehensive instruction when I'm required to use a specific curriculum? So that helped us answer that. This is a great framework, and so we were able to take a look at and use the curriculum that the district provides for us, as well as supplemental materials, and be able to still provide comprehensive instruction. And then it goes through some other things. This was kind of the big picture for us, and just kind of take a mental picture of this, but this is how we determined where kids were in regards to their where we want to start with them for literacy. And so we had this really great schema, I guess, or mapping to help us understand who was emergent and who needed emergent interventions and who needed conventional interventions. And so we were able to take a look and do this yes, no, and work towards that. And so we have students who are getting emergent interventions, kind of tweeners, and then daily conventional interventions. So we've used this graphic to really help us with that first question.
And I think we've probably changed our answer on some of the kids 3 or 4 times. We're on our our 4th iteration of groupings. So it's always a work in progress, and it's always flexible based on what we see our kids doing and how it's going. If you have the book, it's on page 201. It's also linked in the article, and we're going to make sure that you guys have the slide deck. But if you have the book with you, 201 is where this graphic is located.
And
All
so
right.
that's why it's really important to kind of go back and introduce yourself to these things, because we really, as the kids grow and change, they become different readers as we move forward. The next question is, how do I get started when my students have intense behaviors? And we're moving through that right now, and it's kind of messy and fun at the same time, and also frustrating. We cry some days, and that's okay. But we have noticed that as they have built their confidence and their understanding of what the routine is, and we'll go through what that looks like for you. The intense behaviors have decreased, and they know what that expectation is. They know what the routine is. It's really similar, every day. It's the same time every day. It's the same people every day. And so those expectations really set the stage for decreasing those behaviors, because it's not a surprise to them.
And it's the same content with variations, which is kind of how we like to run things within the classroom. We're doing the same kinds of things, but we're using different curriculum each time, or a different book every week or every 2 weeks. So we found that that's a very effective way to introduce a new concept without derailing the progress and having the kids learn those patterns and routines.
The next question we toyed with was, why should I focus on literacy instead of more functional skills? And we know with best practices literacy that knowing how to read is so powerful, and it gives them this life skill, and it opens up their world. Reading opens up everyone's world. And so that is the reason why, is because in order to open up and have that power that they need to be an individual, literacy is really a key. So so that is really part of the best practices in literacy that we're following. And then the last question is, how will I know my students are learning? And that was a hard question at first for us too. It's like, I don't know. We have seen incredible growth in our students, and every day is a surprise. It's like, okay, well, let's try this today. And it's like, oh my gosh, did you see so-and-so? They put together a CDC word all by themselves.
They
And,
sequenced the whole sentence. It was just,
so data is important, and it's just evident with the planning that we put together, the routines that we put together. We have been working on person, place, and thing, right, for 3 months, and we got 100% accuracy from our students this week.
a generalized version that was just amazing. I threw in for fun.
Yeah, so so that's how we know. Just by tracking and having that routine and seeing them. Plus going back to the to our map and saying, hey, we are not using emergent interventions anymore. We're using conventional interventions. So there's a lot of ways that we can demonstrate knowing that our students are learning how to read.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna step out of sharing for a second here so that I can pop back to what I want to actually look at. I can tell you that it was really, really fun, because we looked at those questions just today as we were preparing for this, and we had evidence of where like 5 of them were happening, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So we were super excited to see that. Okay, back to the slide deck. I know I have been seeing some things pop up in the chat. Marcy, is there anything that's really matches with what we're talking about, or are the questions would be better at the end?
I think there's a lot of just affirmations,
Okay.
and maybe a question we'll save to the end.
Okay. All right. So after the conference, because we went to this conference and it was great because there was 2 days of people that want to do what we do, and we got and shameless plug, another one. SETC's been doing a whole series of these. They're still on their website. They've been doing some live conversations with David Koppenhaber, the author. We got to listen to him for a little bit. I do believe that they are recording many of them too. So check out their website. It's a great place to find a lot of that information. And like I said, we kind of want to do it again. We want to do the whole thing and then maybe have a district one as well. So after the conference, we sat and we did this stuff for 2 days, and your brain goes a different place and you're exhausted, but it's a different kind of exhaustion. And this was an exciting one. And here's where we decided to use our school district curriculum. We don't always have, our favorite curriculum. We use something called unique learning systems. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. They do news to you. Everett School District's been providing it for quite a while, and we thought the easiest way to see if we could make this work would be to use what the district provides, and then see if we can make it work with that before we try to supplement. So we took a look at the curriculum, and I've been using it in different varieties and formats for quite a long time. We determined what was missing, what we didn't like. Now we still want to look at sight words. We still want to look at phonics. We want to look at comprehension. And there are some things that we're doing that maybe don't exactly match with all of the book, but they're kind of where we want to go, partly because of IEPs and how they're written. And that's a whole thing in and of itself, to try and write goals that really match. And then after we learned about that emergent and conventional reading lessons in our instruction, we figured our groups. We figured which interventions we wanted to use, and the resource conversations at the conference were phenomenal for us. Then we dove in. And it sounds like it was easy. It was like a month of just talking and trying to wrap our brains around it. And there were some really phenomenal conversations that happened with some of the people from SETC and each other and our classroom staff, just trying to get our brain to where we wanted them to go to get us to that point.
So we're using the planning framework, and we've tweaked it to make it our own. And April's going to share with you the
one of ours.
Yes.
So we took this from SATC. Barb and Amy actually let me look at it before we went to the conference, which is really amazing. And we took it and made our own variety. There was a team from Bellingham there, and they've been doing this work for a year already. It was fun to have them say some days it's great and some days it's like a dumpster fire. It just doesn't work. But those great days kind of, when the kids start doing the things you want to see, make all the difference. So we took it and we changed it. And this is probably the 4th variation of this with the groupings. We have initials just so that it helps us know. This was part of our community unit that we did in February. We have some hyperlinks to some of the other components of it that were actually shared by SETC. So if you see this, they have comprehensive lists of all the different components from the book itself. And so I know I'm shamelessly plugging it, but it's been a really phenomenal resource. Now, these are all in our Google Drive. We all have access to it. Staff has access to it. And we utilize the vision team in our building as well. We had them come in. And so we have components that match this. Now, Kelly, I love the way you described the left to right for the document. So do you want to do that for him?
From left to right?
Yeah, just how what our intent is and how we break it down, because we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Today.
So as we go through the day, our day one, we have our emergent readers on one side, and our emergent interventions, I'll say, and then our conventional interventions. And April and I actually kind of split. She works with the conventional readers, and I work with the emergent readers. And then we put our purpose down, and then the added vocabulary. And as we go down through the day, we hit upon different things. So the purpose of reading, so we have our shared reading, and then we have our writing. And I am not part of every single step along the way, because I have a really large caseload, but I have made this one of my passions this year. And so it has just been kind of a little bit of extra time that I've added to my caseload, based on wanting to learn and joy of working with April and these students. This is the first year that I've ever in my entire life worked with life skills students of this age. And I just like, where have I been all my life, or where have they been all my life? Because I just love it. So we work, do the writing, and April actually does that writing with her students at different times. And so we decide together what the predictable chart writing is going to be, so that we're working on the same vocabulary and together, because I support in a language group then as we move down a little bit farther throughout that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that
So we have our
actually
alphabet
that's
knowledge.
day one. We
Yeah.
do alphabet knowledge. Whoops.
Oops, there's a name
And
there. Sorry.
I lost
He's
it.
okay. We're okay for names, but and so, yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, there was some other, yeah. So we do the writing. It repeats itself every time.
Where's your language group?
Tuesdays we do language group, and so that's where I embed what the theme is into our language group, and so we work on actions of what we're going to do. We work on the vocabulary. We work on categorizing. We work on answering questions. So there's a lot of things that and in April and I plan this together. So I'll say, well, what about I do this? And she's like, yeah, let's do that. And so it's all supportive of the students, the vocabulary, the words that they're learning. So they see it over and over and over again. And we're not just working with sight words, we're working on like beginning sounds. That's part of, and even though a lot of our kiddos are nonverbal, they're really trying to sound out some of their words as well. So it's really fun. It's really fun to see them work on just even trying to pronounce some of the sounds that is in the beginning sound of our words.
So every lesson plan is a 4-day plan, which means it can go anywhere from 4 days to 8 days, depending upon how things are going. Kelly comes in 4 days a week and teaches part of reading group. As she does that, we have just a tremendous amount of material that we try and cover. And some days, like I said, it works really, really well. And other days, it's not the best, but we're trying. And I'm smiling and I'm getting joy in some of what we're talking about, because we've been hearing things come out of the kids, and we've been seeing them participate in ways just recently that we hadn't been seeing before. So
Hey,
it's
April,
phenomenal. Yes.
this is Marcy. Is it okay if I chime in for a second?
Sure.
Great. You don't happen to have the book in front of you, do you?
I do.
Yeah, just I would love it. Oh no, the Learning Helpers book.
Oh, wait, well, that's not the same one that I have. Are you talking about my CVI book?
I'm talking about the book from the
The,
example of the
the
lesson.
tactile. Yes. Learning helpers. I didn't bring that one home.
That's
What
okay.
I can do is I can show people where it is. The Learning Helpers book was actually one that is done by ULS. So it's the Unique Learning Systems book. So if you go in, February was Community Month. I do intermediate grade band for elementary. So if you go in, and if people are not familiar with it, what we can do is at the end, I can access my account and kind of show people part of that. Because I know that, like, when we had Amy come down from Bellingham, she had not been familiar with ULS. So I can walk you guys through a little bit of that at the end if we want to.
Yeah,
So
thank you for that. Yeah.
yeah.
I was I was thinking that for some parents in the audience, if you imagine that you're opening a book and you're reading a book to your child, and the book is all about community helpers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't have that one, but I do have one for what we're doing right now.
oh, okay. Well, then
We
you're
can
gonna get to it.
I will get to it. Yeah, I
Okay.
have so I'm sitting here with this giant box. So if I bend over or something, you guys, I'm sitting here with a giant box of stuff, because we literally have all of our lessons for the week and all of the materials, and they sit in the boxes. So I was going through the boxes today, and I brought one home with all the stuff stuffed inside, and I'm shuffling around in the office here to make sure that I have all of it. So we'll talk about and look at the communication boards that come with it, the books and how they look, and then some of the additional things that we've been able to supplement with. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yes. All right. We're going to go back to what I'm sharing here. All right. So, ready for this next section? Let me see if I've missed anything on this last one. Oh, vision. Let's talk about vision for a second. So one of the things that I'm doing this year, that we're doing this year that we haven't done before, is we do have a student with CVI. We talked about that. So in the collaborative document that we gave you guys a little peek at, we list exactly what we need from the vision department. We're really, really lucky. They're a phenomenal group of ladies, and they are in our building. So we do this plug and we print the books. We have all the materials that we need and we drop them in their mailbox. We give them access to all of the stuff in the drive. So all of the materials and all of the lessons that you guys were taking a peek at there with the one that we have, we actually have available to them. So they go in and they find the vocabulary. And then they do things for us like print Roman bubble letters for our sentence building for our kiddo that has CVI. And we give them the book and they come back, and the books are great because it's not just our CVI kiddo that loves it, but they come back and we tell them which vocabulary to highlight. So this month it's seasons and the weather and what you can do in different weather. And so for spring, you can plant flowers, but I don't know if you guys can see this. It's literally tactile and it's shiny and it highlights the words and it has them all in Roman bubble. So we have this wonderful group of people that kind of help us put all these beautiful things together. Another one that we didn't have in there anywhere, it said sentence strips. So we have these little sentence strips and we start them with a star. And these are in the boxes so that all of the kids, as they're doing their predictable chart writing, they'll do it on the wall, they'll cut it up, they'll have it in print. They get to pick their fringe for each one. And the one thing I don't think that we talked about in terms of the AAC that we use is we have a giant tear-off core. Thank you, Barb. And then we have a small version. So we make sure that we have all of these available and we kind of mix and match. There's a lot of different things that go into each lesson. And I know that when I start talking about some of this, and Kelly has said this before, I forget that now everybody does this or brings in all the different components of it. So it's been a long time to get to having all of those different components, but it's just kind of a part of how I think and how we teach when we're doing it, because we've made those resources over time and taught ourselves how to use them. So, okay. Here
The
we
other
go.
thing that we chose to do, and the ULS books are great. However, they're a little bit limited and oftentimes very wordy. And so we decided that as part of it, we would try to write a Everett Public Schools Foundation grant to see if it would be helpful to maybe get some support. And they loved our RY. And so we got $1,000 to go towards books for kids. And the whole idea was to have the books in their hands so that they could turn the pages rather than us just kind of hold up a book and turn the pages. So each student has their own book and they read with us because that is an important piece of this literacy best practices.
So a couple of things for the ULS, and you'll see some of these at the end. We have some photos. We have for the ULS stories, they create, and they're color coded, and they are not all of the vocabulary. So we utilize this, but we also have the kids come to the table with their devices, with the pod if we have one. And we hop back and forth. Like we said, it's messy. It's never perfect and it's never complete, but we're bringing in as many different components as we can. And then the kids all get a copy of the stories as well. I don't have the money, nor does the building, to print them all in color. Eventually, we would like to get to that point. One of the things that we're doing is all of the materials that we're creating, the lesson plans and all of the sentences, everything, it's all getting saved, the CVI book, so that we end up with a pick up and carry. Now we'll have to redo the lesson plans based on the kids that we have, but we're building up a library that we can continue to use in the future. And we do. We have somebody that goes down and makes copies of the books, and we're all learning to turn the pages. We're even doing number recognition as we're practicing turning those pages because we're taking a second and finding, can we all get to that same page? So I'm going to get off topic here.
No, you're good. You're
Good?
right on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
In addition to that, we also utilize Clicker. Clicker actually does some work with ULS now. So Unique does some work with Clicker, and we found some of the materials that we access. We've got some great people that, because neither of us are Clicker aficionados from the last couple of versions they've had, we've learned some new things and we work on it. Kelly's grant and then our CBI team and the phenomenal work that they do for us as well. Okay, so the weekly planning, we choose our vocabulary. And that's based on our 48 cell core that we have. We also make sure that we have our yes and no. And I do love that ULS also has that yes and no at the top of every page. And because we have access to it, we can also use symbol sticks. So if we have a story that isn't from ULS, we actually can get this framework, and we can pick the vocabulary together from our supplemental books and make these same storyboards to utilize with each story, so that our kids recognize that material and can use it on a regular basis. Our sentences that we try and build, the he is or the she is, they all focus on using our core. So we have that tear off core. And I actually managed to bring home on accident, it was in the wrong box, one of our small tear off cores that we also have. So it's the same kind of thing, but this one tears off and there's a sentence strip at the top. So sometimes my conventional reading group, when we're doing really well, we're participating really well, we'll start building our sentence that we're highlighting from each page in our story. We talked about our speech group, how that goes. And, it's kind of a co-taught. Nothing we do is independent. I mean, we each teach our group, but we make sure that the staff can go back and forth. But even speech is co-taught. Kelly's doing one part, I'm hopping over and trying to do it on core. Or we have staff that walk around, and we're really lucky in the staff that we have. They're very comfortable trying. They're very comfortable flipping through and trying to figure out how to find a word. And I think sometimes that's one of the major hurdles you're going to run into, is are you comfortable and is your team comfortable doing messy learning and trying to find something and putting themselves out there. And somebody will, I can't find it. And somebody else will yell, it's over here, and walk you through how to find something in a student's device. And sometimes I was talking about this the other day, looking like you don't know how to find it or doing it with the kids is the best way for them to learn it too. So we do our clicker, we do our predictable chart writings, and we have chart paper. We write it on the chart paper and cut it up, and we have the kids work on it. We also work on narrative writing, and this is part of what I was talking about. And Marcy mentioned Kelly's work on the building foundations that last. So originally that work was done by David Madison, and Everett School District took it on years ago and came up with adaptations for it. And we had some wonderful people who went to bat and got some of our life skills teachers taught on how to do it too, because they taught the SLPs and the OTPTs. But we had a group that thought, hey, everybody knows how to write and everybody can learn how to write. So we have figured out, and I used to do this differently because I had different kids and things changed. We used to do narrative writing, and I would use a storyboard that was very similar to these, and we would do individual narrative writing. The group I got is not a group I've had for a long time, because I had those kids for years. So we started again, and I found a new variation. It looks a little bit like the stuff that I used to do, whereas we take a picture of a child in what they're doing in the classroom. And because we've started with predictable chart writing, we take that same sentence that we are working on, and we write our sentences from that. This lesson was one of the ones, and you can't see it, but there's something at the end with a visual of it that brought me so much joy I cried in the middle of class. I get like that sometimes. We had a fan. We had leaves all over the carpet, and Kelly was standing in the middle of the room with his giant rake because we had been doing push and pull and Newton's motion. Barb's going to look at me and be like, you're doing it again. So we had some help getting this whole lesson together, but it was so much fun to make a mess and have kids trying to find these words in their iPads. Well, fans were blowing leaves across the classroom, and we're pushing things and pulling them around. And then we got to sit and write about it. And you should have seen the kids getting excited. And we have those same words for our predictable chart writing sentence. So they draw it, and then we put it at the bottom of the page, and they see a picture of themselves doing it. And they're writing, and they're reading it. And I need to take a minute, sorry.
So if you're not verklempt like I am too, you can see the passion that we both have for watching these kids grow. So it's pretty exciting.
And it becomes exhausting, which is part of it too. but it's amazing. And
If we don't cry once a week, we're not doing our job.
and if you find the thing that you can connect those two ideas or those two activities together, you're bridging those gaps because you're also helping them find it in their iPad, or you're also helping them do it on a core, that you're just building those connections for the kids. So everything is AAC and everything is reading and doing it. And it's lovely.
How are you doing, April?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Those that know me know I do this a lot. Sorry. All right. So we adjust and we adapt and we do all of this every week or every 2 weeks. And Kelly and I
back up just back up just a little bit.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talk about planning all the time, but I think that's really, really key.
It is important.
Is the planning piece. But in the course of when we started, we've done 6 lessons. Push and pull.
Units.
How many?
6 units that go about a month.
Sorry,
or a
6
month.
units. Yeah. Sorry. Giving, healthy choices, community, and weather, and bringing it. So one of the questions was how to literacy or functional, and we're kind of doing the best of both worlds, because in giving, we not only learned how to read the word give, but we actually gave each other gifts. So the kids made gifts for each other and gave them to each other. They also learned how to give high fives, elbow bumps, or what was the other one?
Fist bumps.
Fist bumps.
And they're a huge thing in the classroom because the kids love to do it. We spent 2 weeks at language group giving each other high fives and fist bumps.
And this is a group that was new to us, all new adults, all new students together, and they weren't quite sure about each other at first. So getting them in a circle was really, really tough. Healthy choices was fun because they not only learned how to read those words, April got little tiny mirrors and practiced grooming every day. So they took their little toothbrush after lunch and brushed their teeth. They combed their hair, they wiped their face, and we connected it all with that vocabulary, as well as the letters that are part of that reading those words. Community has been really fun, and April's going to show you what we've done with community, and then she gave you a little bit of a taste of our weather unit that we're working right now.
Yeah, and honestly, with the healthy choices one, we even talked about foods that we chose, and we talked about some of the healthy foods that we had in the classroom. And it's lovely because honestly, with the healthy choices, I had some kids. It's allergy time. We had kids using a cough pocket. We've got kids that'll go get a tissue and then want to wash their hands. And we won't do it for a week or two and pop back up and do it again. And it's lovely to watch that progress. So it's a life skill, it's a reading skill, it's all of the things at the same time. All right, next slide. Let's see here. Okay, so we have 2 groups. We used to have very different variations than we do now. Each staff member has worked with either group. So basically, if I'm out, somebody can run my group. If Kelly is out, somebody can run Kelly's group. Because we have everything in those boxes, including the lesson plans, and the team helps every week making sure that it's ready for the next week. It's a part of it. We have OTPTs and SLP or OTPTs that come in. Push and pull was fun because we were gutting pumpkins in the middle of the room and we were pushing things in the pumpkin and pulling everything out of it. And it was a messy day, but it ended up being a lot of fun. In addition to that, we might be doing small group work around phonics, additional readings, CVC word work, writing things that we do, even using whiteboards. There are fun things that the kids get to work on that some of them hadn't done previously. I'm a big firm believer and fan of BOOM cards. So we work on using a lot of those as well because it helps the kids generalize some of these skills and some of the different activities that we work on. All right, so AAC that we use in this situation, both low and high tech. We use core plus all of our related fringe. If you don't have it and you have kids that are on touch chat editor is an amazing thing. I discovered it during COVID. Thank you, Kara. and we've been using it ever since. It's kind of it's a free version of Touch Chat that you can load onto a machine. So we have the kids use that throughout the day. They'll use it on the big board, and then they'll go back and they'll also use their own personal AAC at their desks, or they'll come up with their answer or build their sentence and then come up and do it on the screen as well. Within the classroom, I said we have Touch Chat, we have Proloquo, and we have Pod, plus we have a child that uses Sign, and we have a switch user. We use all of our books. We have been using Clicker. We even pulled down the clicker units that we have. We put those in our same drive where we have all of our lesson plans. And then we do those at least once or twice a week, and work on developing and building new sentence grids. I just called Barb the other day and said, I can't figure out how to change this one. We had a 5-minute Zoom and she taught me something new, which was amazing. So sometimes it's who you know as much as anything else. All right, I think we've talked about a lot of these. We didn't talk about the alphabet letters. We do pick a set of letters. Those are based in what ULS has. If you're familiar with it, Lesson 11, which is like, 7 million pages long, has variations on letters that you're going to use. So we take those letters and we make small versions. We take the word family words and we use those as well. We practice writing them, we practice reading them, we practice additional CVC word and work on top of that. That stays in the box for the whole month or the entire time we use that unit. And it's been lovely because Callie's been highlighting specific words with her emergent group. And I've been hearing more and more, even as I'm working with my group on the other side, hearing kids working on making sounds and finding sounds. And we had a student today who independently chose 3 letters that we've been working on for the last month or so, which is very prompt dependent and didn't need them this time. It's absolutely amazing to watch. Little things, pointer tools. You learn little odd things. I've had kids who are very tactily defensive, or they tap with their finger all the time. And we found out if you take a chenille stick and you make a loop, you can have your kids put their finger through it and then it becomes a tracking tool. It's also not one of those things that you tap, tap, tap. We've seen kids do a lot of that. This sits in the box with all the other tools for the month. The whiteboards are in the boxes. We even have, and it says a black whiteboard. If you get on Amazon, you can find, if you have kids that have CBI, we use a lot of the whiteboards. They're a really great universal tool. They make flexible ones that are black, and then they will add those bright colored markers so that you can write on them and utilize those, especially if you have kids that also don't pay attention as much. Using those dynamic colors really, really works well. And I think the one we got for our kiddo was like $8 on Amazon. And Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you found that the kids pay attention to it so well, you actually use that one more than the whiteboards if you're talking to them, making lists.
Yes, actually, they like that so much better, and can attend. They also like the CVI books better as well. They attend more to them, and I think we're finding that using less words right now, because we're using lots of words, not pictures and words, but words that they can identify the initial sound a lot easier when there's not so many words.
Okay, so the last thing I want to show everybody is really just a link to a bunch of pictures, and we'll talk you through the pictures, and then we're going to let you have some time for questions. I have a list here, but it's not where I wanted it to be, so pardon me for just a moment. If anybody had a question in the meantime, they can sure ask it. And I have seen that the chat has gone up and up in terms of the number of things people had on it. So
There was a question in the chat.
okay.
How do you bring schools on board with this approach when they only use a quote curriculum and need data to show progress?
I try and write goals that relate to what I'm working on. Predictable chart writing was one that the other life skills teacher at the school and I did collaboratively last year, and we had all of our meetings on Zoom because we worked in different buildings. They're my goals and they're Kelly's goals, and so we take a look at what we're working on for literacy and we write them together. If I could figure out a way to get everybody to drink the Kool-Aid, I like to say, I would be a very, very happy person. I find that the best way to do it is to start with one and show how it works, and model. And my favorite thing to do, although it makes me nervous and I get a little weird, is things like this, because I feel like if you tell one person and they find the value in it, and they might try it. And it is hard, and it's a lot of work, and it becomes daunting. Um, but I'm looking at some of the faces on here, and I know that I've seen them do things that I picked up on and started to do. And I would hope that because we have such a great small community of people who care so much, you get that one person that wants to buy in and show how it works, and that might start it. That's why Kelly and I want to do the book study again. We want to take the district curriculum that isn't necessarily everybody's favorite and show, hey, it is possible. Would you like to see how we did it? And share those resources, because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the kids that need to do the learning. Kelly, did you have anything you wanted to add to that one?
Not being a classroom teacher, I think that's a hard thing because as an SLP, we don't have curriculum. So sometimes I'm like, oh, that's so lovely that you have curriculum. And so that's why I push into the classrooms, because that vocabulary drives what I teach those students. And I think, there's uh, great things and not so great things about all curriculum, right? But we've taken uh, um, the view of let's find the interesting units that the kids are going to be able to really grasp on, and then pair that with some supplemental materials, some supplemental books, and we even work with our librarian in our library to help us with that supplemental. And then the set C, the work that Barb has done is incredible. That is also supplemental and free. That we have just really been able to grow it. I think fairly quickly in a short period of time.
Well, and I'm glad that you said we pick which ones we like, because there have been a couple of units that we didn't like at all and we just skipped them, and we found additional things that we wanted to use, but we framed it in the same kind of context we have everything else.
We really want to make it meaningful for kids too. And your students best, right? And we knew that our students probably we did the then and now unit,
Right.
but we didn't stay there very long because that wasn't meaningful for them, as meaningful for them. Like when they were a baby, we kind of brought up when we were a baby. Like, oh,
It was a
that
very hard unit for them to connect to.
it was. I brought in different artifacts that I had when I was little, but they weren't really that interested.
We went on
So
to the
you
next
give it a
one.
try and then you go, hey, that was a good try. And then we moved on.
Let's try something else now.
That's why planning is so important, right?
Yeah,
Because we went, okay, 3 weeks on this, and let's do the next one.
something
And
else. And we found that a unit can go longer than a month. We can do the same book for 2 weeks by the time we're doing all the different things. And that's where those big behaviors and when things go sideways or you have a lockdown or anything else, some days are great and some days aren't. So we adjust accordingly. And I'll look at Kelly and I'll go, should we do this for another week? Or can we do this one again? Let's move on. So we do put in a lot of time. She and I will sit there sometimes, and my poor daughter goes to school in our building, and she'll sit there and watch us do our lesson plans on the big screen and talk about it. She finds things to do, and we'll sit till we get it all done, and then get going on to the next part. So not perfect, but we do love it right now, and we're learning, and the kids are growing. Okay, so I have pictures to show you now, and this is the last thing we'll do, and you guys can ask questions. And I want to let Kelly go because she's amazing and she agreed to do this with me, and she's leaving because her son's getting married. So we're going to tell her thank you and let her go on her merry way. So photos of our class. We do have waivers and permission to be using all of these today. So we have some kids working on their names, and we will meet them where they are. If you are a floor learner, we will learn on the floor. We'll aim for you to end up in a chair eventually, but right now this is where you are, so this is where we're going to work. We are working on sequencing the letters in our names. We've got our iPads there. Kelly's got her big box of stuff. We've got somebody behind here at the other table working with another kid. I was watching reading today, and I had my group at the back, and it was 2 of us to run that group. And Kelly's group decided today was not a day to work collaboratively. So there were 3 people working on the same materials in 3 different ways in 3 different spots in the classroom to make it through the reading lesson for 2. So thank goodness for flexibility in staff. We, in addition to our regular core, have a complete tactile core for our CVI kiddo. So these have been made. He's got pocket charts and felt that we have it. We are not utilizing this as well as I would like to. This is one of my future goals, is to get better at utilizing this part of it. And I think with the way our kids look at these more dynamic versions, I think that it's something that we should be utilizing a bit more as well. This is my small core. This lives everywhere. I put these in the hall and let other teachers take them. For a million years, I taped them to the desks, and I don't know why, because the Velcro is my best friend now. I just put Velcro on it, stick it on. If it dies, I just put a new one on. They live everywhere in multiple copies. Communication board from the story. So this was part of our health theme. So we did most of those things. We did not ride bikes, but didn't we go for a walk or do something where we got exercise one day too, Kelly, in order to talk about how kids can do all of these different things. We highlighted the foods, all sorts of different stuff. Here's our narrative writing, how we do that with the kids at this point. Oh, I'll go back and let you guys look at that. So what you saw there, where you saw some of the stuff from Building Foundations That Last, with the photograph of the kid doing the activity. And there is literally a bunch of leaves and a rake. You can't see me with a fan sitting in the middle of the floor, blowing them across the room. So Kelly could pull them back and we could push the leaves with the wind and pull it back. But we have our windows to demonstrate where we are. And we have our highlighted vocabulary, and we have our sentences. We now have kids that aren't doing this. Actually, this young man is now writing his entire sentence on his own. Sometimes he has a model. Sometimes he doesn't need one anymore to do the sentence writing. So here's a friend trying to use the tool. This was one of our buddies who was the most resistant to joining in reading group. And if I recall today, he was sitting by himself, but did amazing. And he was using some of the ASL that he loves. He found some of the letters from the story, and one of the ones that Miss Marks has been practicing this weekend. I think I heard him make the sound of it too, which was amazing because he is a very hesitant vocalizer. Predictable chart writing. So we write it up there on the wall just like that. We build it on our core. Everybody makes their own choice. And then we have it there. And you should see we have one whole wall that is full of posters of the predictable chart writing that the kids have done over the course of the year. And I get new ones and I have to move it because it doesn't all fit. I still don't know how to use my space as well as I would like in this new building. But that's a part of it. Tools, stories, everybody's got their books, and again, are meeting them where they are and using what we want them to use. Okay, within comprehensive literacy for all, there's some things that we just haven't implemented well yet, but that we do in our own way. I like to make checklists. So if it's reading group time, we might be doing reading group, but I'll have a checklist along with that. It's kind of a sub-schedule. I like to have schedules, but I don't like to carry around schedules in lots of little pieces. It becomes its own endeavor. So again, whiteboards are my bestie. I will make a list of what we would like to make it through. And here's me explaining to one of my kiddos that we can't do it now. We've run out of time. It's time to go to lunch. And so we're going to do it later. And sometimes they'll even hold me accountable. You said later, where they'll start trying to get that component so that we can work on it. All right, whiteboards and pens from lesson 11. If you were a ULS user, we practice writing the words. We look at them, we build the word family words, and sometimes we just take a look at the pictures, practice writing words. We had one kiddo do today some whiteboard writing that we had not seen her previously do independently, based on some of the work that we had been working on. So it was absolutely amazing to see. All right, one last slide, and this is kind of my favorite things that we have right now. We have our last unit was on community. And we picked 2 supplemental books that we wanted to do in addition to the 2 books from ULS. And we had this wall right outside the classroom, and it was ugly. It was dirty and there was nothing on it. It was a bulletin board that I had not taken on this year. We made our own community. So we took pictures of things that the kids did, and they made flowers and they made buildings, and they made their own wall. And it's been sitting up there for about a month now. And if you're familiar with it, this is the book that we used. It's called Hay Wall by Susan Burdett. And it tells the story of a big ugly wall in a community where nobody likes it and they want to be somewhere else and they want to look at something else because it didn't bring them any joy. And you can see one of my friends over here, he was dressed as a construction worker because our our building, it's actually the kid right by the door. Our school actually did, what you want to be when you grow up the very same month. And so we had costumes and we got dressed up and we talked about what we wanted to be. And so we put this whole thing together and it's really fun because we're near the end of the hall or one of the main exits for the building. And the teachers go by now and they love our wall. And the kids go by now and they talk about our wall. And somebody was trying to touch it the other day and somebody else went, "Hey, don't touch that. It looks nice. I want to leave it alone." And it brought me joy. So that is where we are in our journey so far.
Thank you, April and Kelly, so much. I am just grinning ear to ear. Big virtual applause and high fives. It is the hour, and I don't want to keep anybody if they need to sign off. But and I know we'll say goodbye to Kelly so she can go do her thing.
So much fun.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a delight to present. I'm not like the most confident presenter, so this was a very comfortable opportunity, and I hope that we continue learning as a community. This has been really great. My son's getting married on Saturday, and we're traveling tomorrow morning early, so I'm going to sign off. So thank you so much.
I'll see you next
Bye,
week.
Kelly. Thank you. For those of you, so April, if you don't mind staying on for
Sure.
3-ish minutes, if anybody has any questions. And then my only other thing I'll say is, if you are hoping to receive a continuing education certificate for your logs that you attended this presentation, we do offer that. I will post a survey link in the chat, and if you fill out that survey link, I will send you a CE certificate. And with that, are there any questions?
I'll say one thing. I'm gonna put my email and my classroom phone number in the chat. If you guys have questions, if you want to do things, I have people come visit. I do all sorts of crazy stuff. If it's something you want to do, sure, welcome. We do have some rules about how we do it. But like I said, my goal is for everybody to get to learn and to do things together. And I bet if you came, you could probably teach me things too, or if you reach out. So please feel free to do so. But I'll take questions or anything else right now. Oh, the community wall book. That's it. It's called Paywall. And the author is Susan Verday. I'll put it in the chat. But Kara, did you just text me? Nope, it was Barb. Okay, I'm putting it in the chat. It's lovely.
I guess I'll just say I really appreciate hearing all of the information, and especially working as I do in a hospital where I get multiple districts and families from across the state and different schools and different situations. And I think I really appreciated hearing just that one person at a time, right? Because it
That's
does.
what I can control.
Yeah, 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 and it feels daunting if you're a parent and you're in a district and your classroom doesn't have the kind of supports or interest even, right? And so who is that, even as a parent, who is that one person who you have that relationship with, where you can start the discussion? I really appreciate that.
Jen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so this is from a parent perspective. And like I shared earlier, my son is now 13 and he just got Prologue to go. And so, however, as a parent, I've always presumed competence with him.
Yep. Not just competence, but potential.
That too. But I have always believed he has the ability. So I guess that was my question. Like, if there's two parts, like, what is the impact on families of your students as you're leaning into this? And then secondly, is what you're doing actually able to have your students have more access to general education and their peers? Like, are they able to engage in that more because you're leaning into this and you have this philosophy that
I would
presents
like to hope
confidence?
so. I'm new to this building. I'm new to learning these kids. And up until this year, the last 12, I spent teaching 6 grades in one classroom. So inclusion is a really difficult thing to do when I'm not adequately staffed to do so. The bonus I have is the first person that leaned in and has been watching this is the librarian who also loans us those books. And she just invited a couple of the kids to start coming for gen ed. In addition, she's like, we'll make it work. We'll find somebody to align them with, and they're going to start spending the time. Am I there yet? Absolutely not. Is it one of my next goals? Yes. Now, Jen, I got that part. Can you reiterate for me, please? Because it's been a very long day, the first part.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So the impact on families. So like as you're talking to families about what you're intentionally doing, like how has that impacted the families?
Some do, some don't. I'm looking at a friend on the screen who worked with one of my families for years and years, and I'm hoping she wants to pipe in if she would like to.
Thank you for calling me out. Yeah. Hi, April.
Hi,
Yes,
Sarah.
we shared a student like for 5 years, maybe 6. I
Something
think
like
I lost
that, yeah.
track. And April's very collaborative, and it was wonderful working with her. Actually worked with her back in the district back in the day, but from my perspective, the literacy skills does carry over. Like the student that I'm thinking about is actually, he motivates me, right? And the family embraced literacy. So, and I think
And
part of this,
the communication.
yes, all of it. There's so much I want to share. Like, it was a really beautiful interaction to see because the family would talk about the things that they did at school. Part of the time was during COVID, and so mom and dad were there working and seeing the capabilities of what this child can do because he's one that wouldn't do any more work than he absolutely had to, but very brilliant. And so I think, I'm still inspired by April because the literacy that exposure, that shared reading that she started, and I think we started like kindergarten or first grade with him. I can't remember, and so year after year after year, by the time
You're right, Jen.
he's a 5th grader, it looks very, very different, and the growth was just remarkable. So I think it does carry over. I think as with anything, every student, every family is different, but April is very good at being transparent and communicating to families. And so I think if the family is ready and listening and doing and like, you'll see the growth there too. Does that make sense? It takes a while for some, like you hear some people say, oh, my child's not a reader. Well, great. We're just going to pick up the book, or we're just going to look at it, or it's just going to be on the table, and so in 3 or 5 years, oh my gosh, remember when? So I don't know if that really, I could talk for hours too, but I think it does carry over. And I think the time and the persistence, right? So that exposure, not only like you're saying, like you're doing a lot of the same structure, with like the units, it's the same thing. So they become familiar with the routine. You do that every year, you do it for 2 or 3, 5 years, like it is going to carry over and that you are going to see those skills. So
Cass, you asked a question about teaching literacy different at home. We read books. We talk about reading books. We look at the books. We look at the words in the books. Kara and I shared student. He didn't like books when he started. He had a whole set of books that he absolutely loved. Sometimes he would use his AAC for him, and sometimes he wouldn't. I ask families and I challenge them to play with the kids' communication devices when the kids go to bed, and practice and become familiar with using them, and be fragile with each other and try and do the hard stuff. But then also just introduce a book. And if you know this, I have a student right now who most of the time, for the first 2 months, 3 months of school, he just wanted to tap on books or rub them on his teeth. We found 3 or 4 books that he really likes. He also likes us to hum. So when I talk to his parents at conferences, I said, I try and sing song the book to him because it means that he listens to me more. It means that those things that our families know about the kids, if we are paying attention, we can give them those little hints and those little clues that will really help them do those same things with their kids. And I'll invite them in and I will show them how I do it. I'll have them bring in their kid and I'll do it. whatever I can to help them get that. And yes, Jen, I totally agree with you about COVID teaching parents a lot about their kids and what their kids were really capable of doing if they were able to get on and do the work with them. Didn't like it all the time, but I saw some